But we are going to talk a lot about capital standards. This issue has been around for those of us following it for quite some time. Whether it's at the NAIC or the G20 or you're talking about the IIS, and we certainly heard some discussion this morning. But this is really a topic that has really come to the forefront now that we are really dealing in a much more global market, and we're seeing the federal government become more involved in really starting to move us forward on those discussions.
It depends on what you mean by capital standards. If what you mean is consensus, if not unanimity, in support of principles, in support of practices, I think that's achievable. But if you're talking about highly detailed, highly specific, one-size-fits-all, prescriptive group capital standards that would be the same for any entity around the world, I have a hard time seeing how we get there.
There are, as we know already, several group standards out there. Solvency II is a group standard, obviously. I think the Canadians have a group standard in the OSFI world of MCCSR. We know the Fed's doing it. We know IIS is doing it. I understand that the NAIC is doing something to aggregate entity level. So we're going to have this proliferation, in my mind, of group capital standards. And I think that's going to present a even more complicated challenge. In some cases, a standard is being overlaid under entity-level calculations that are based on different concepts and methods. And I think it's going to create some very, very serious management challenges as we go forward and have this proliferation of many, many different and significantly different, if not standards, guidelines for where capital ought to be.
To measure every single risk at exactly the right level, that's achievable. If it's principles-based, that's achievable. The problem I have is that I continue to hear people say, we want a group capital standard to create a mechanism for comparing companies across jurisdictions, for creating a level playing field. And as soon as you start to say, I just read Carl Van Hula, some of you in the audience may know him, is formerly with the European Commission, and he led the charge on Solvency II. And he just sent me a copy of an article he had written where, again, he said, this is important. The reason that we can't have different accounting regimes in the long run is because we need something that's comparable, that will provide a level of comparability. I think as long as that's the goal, we are going to be on a fool's errand. We're going to be chasing a wild goose. We're going to spend a lot of energy trying to get to something that's just at the end of the day not achievable.